Hi everyone, welcome to the final part of the tutorial. So finally we're going to finish our model. We're going to be using Blender, we're going to use some procedural texturing, we're going to try to also UV unwrap certain parts of the model, and finally finalize our final render and finish with this sculpt. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually import our model into the Blender, and I want to delete everything that is here in the shot because I don't need it. And let me go to File, Import, FBX. Okay, there it is. So there is the model, and as you can see, it's really tiny. And the reason is for that because the scale is 100 times smaller than it's supposed to be. So we can press S and 10 or 100. Yeah, 100 will be better. So S and 100, and we can restore it to a normal size. So there we have our model, and as you can see, it's separate objects here in Blender. This is exactly what we needed. It's great. The first thing, and the very first thing I'm gonna do is select everything here and go press 3 in this case and just lift it up so that it would be right on the floor, because I don't like when the objects are, you know, somewhere in the middle. I just want them to be right on the floor. And another thing I want to do is, you know, I want to be able to control all of these objects with just like, you know, one controller, because I don't want to like move and select everything, you know, each time. It's much easier to just create a empty. I'm going to go here, empty, and press plane axis here. So once I create it, I can essentially choose all the models in the scene, and let me just select all of them. And I'm going to select the empty last. And then I press Shift, Control P, Object, Keep Transform. And so as you can see, now everything got parented to this empty. And now when I move this empty, our ice cream moves as well. So with this out of the way, let's also set up the camera straight away. So I'm gonna press Shift A and look for a camera here. Press 0 to look from the camera, then View, Navigation, and Walk Navigation. This is the navigation that I usually use. And you can use WASD like in the games and just locate it, you know, however you need it. So I'm gonna position it somewhere here. Another thing I want to do is straight away to set up the output size. It's gonna be a square, so 1080 by 1080. And another thing I want to do is select the camera, and I want to make the lens 125 millimeters. This is my personal preference. I think for this kind of artwork, this would be an interesting lens to work with. I mean, you can leave it at 50 if you like how it looks like, but I just prefer look from the 125. Okay, so navigation, walk navigation. I'm just gonna move it a little bit like that, so that it can take as much space as it can in the window. All right. And so now, like, as you can see, I can rotate our model however I want, maybe position it some interesting position. Maybe something like that, and maybe also tilt it a little bit so we can see from the top, something like that. So I mean, we'll get to tweaking. So you know, actually before we do that, I want to leave it straight like that because I want to do UV unwrapping. So once I press tab, as you can see, since we exported like a high poly model version, as you can see, there is way too many polygons, and this is actually not that great. And the reason is for that because, as you can see, it's a bit hard to select the edges here. And so, as I previously mentioned, normally, you know, when you're working with animated models, you would get a low poly version and then bake high poly textures. But since we're just like, you know, trying to get this artwork done quickly, and maybe some of you don't have Substance Painter, we're just gonna do it this way. So okay, so I'm gonna select the edge approximately somewhere here in the middle, as far as I remember, and this edge is actually the one that we created. I guess not this one. It's supposed to be somewhere in the middle, perhaps this one. It's supposed to connect with the other side, and it kind of tries to, but doesn't really succeed. So I'm gonna go back a little bit and just select manually the connection here. And it's not the perfect option, but it's all right. So I'm gonna press Shift Z to just check if everything UVs are all in place, and they do seem to be in place. Now I'm just gonna press UV and mark seam. So once I did that, I can actually again select all the polygons and go UV unwrap. Wait for it to unwrap. It takes quite some time because there is a lot of polygons. If it would have been optimized model, it wouldn't be taking this much time. Okay, so there it is. It's extremely high amount of polygons, but it's all right. Okay, so once we have it here, I'm also wanna maybe UV unwrap this one. I'm not sure yet. Yeah, the stick definitely, we gotta UV unwrap it. So I'm gonna just come here, select it like that. And as you can see, we have our edge loop. And this is actually good amount of polygons on this one, even though it's still quite a lot, but it's not bad. Okay, so I'm gonna select everything. Oh, no. I'm gonna unwrap first, mark seam, and then unwrap. Oh, well, select everything and then unwrap. And go to UV editing tab. And as you can see here in the UV editing tab, we have our UV map here. And that's great. So another thing I want to do is actually check how our textures would look like on the model. And I can do that by just creating a new material. I'm just going to click, like, let's say on the body. We already have some material, but I'm going to delete this one and create a new one. And I'm going to call the new material checker. So next thing I want to do is go to the shading tab here. Let me press Shift A and add a checker texture here. So I'm going to connect this to the base color here, and just make one white and one other black. And another thing I want to do is press Ctrl T here to add mapping and texture coordinate nodes, and switch this one to UV because I want for texture coordinates to use UV. So as you can see, this is our UV unwrap. This is the UV seam that I was mentioning here, and as you can see, it's quite visible. And I can try to also scale the whole thing down. Okay, let's actually scale it up. I think let's do 5 and 5. Okay, and maybe let's do 10 and 10, just so it would be a little bit easier to see. Okay, yeah, so there are like a few, as you can see, stretching moments, but I think that's fine. I mean, we're not going to be using, wood texture or anything like that. In fact, it's just going to be like a simple base color. But it's just like I want you to understand basically that this is the UV seam that we created. And as you can see, this is where it's going to be visible that the textures are connected. So, I mean, you can also, if you want to hide it, you can potentially try to cut it somewhere from the middle here to the back here and try to see if the texture works well. So really sometimes it's error and trial, but if you plan your model correctly when modeling, then it's going to be easy to UV unwrap it. Okay, so I want to also apply this material to this stick, so I'm going to select a checker here as well, and as you can see here, everything looks fine. Okay, great. So let's go back to the view here. And the first thing also, before starting already working with the materials, and this is the number one thing that you should do if you want to get a great lighting, is add HDRI maps. So if you go to shading tab, to the world here, and as you can see, we have here background. So the first thing we create here, environment texture. And I already have like a bunch of HDRI maps downloaded and installed on my computer, but I still want to show you how to get them. So let me just go open up the browser, and I'm going to open up a new tab here, and let's search for HDRI. So when you search for HDRI, the first website that appears, Polyheaven. And here, as you can see, there is a lot of interesting HDRIs, and at the bottom here, there is a material preview how this is going to look like. How the material is going to look like in the viewport, basically. And as you can see, there is different like variations of lighting. There is a more contrasty, less contrasty, or very smooth ones. And I think I'm just gonna try out this one. Looks kind of interesting. So let's just, I don't need 4K. I just need literally just bases, and as you can see, there are very large files. So I'm gonna download this one. That's it. So now I'm gonna open it up here. Gonna go to the desktop, find the HDRI map that I downloaded, and as you can see, there it is. I'm gonna switch the color space to the I think maybe non-color would be fine. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it displays. And let me press Ctrl T here, generate it. Okay, and just plug it in here into the color tab here. And if you don't see it in the viewport yet, you need to click here on the viewport shading. And as you can see, there's different options: scene light and scene world. So we need to turn them on. And there's our HDRI map. And if I go like here to the render tab and switch to cycles, and let me just switch to GPU compute, and from the supported to experimental, I'm gonna try to render it out right now and see what kind of results we can get. So as you can see, this is already with applied lighting. I'm just gonna delete this material and delete this material as well and create a new one. So yeah, this is how it's gonna look like with the lighting. Maybe we don't have to make it this powerful. Maybe it could be just like a bit subtle. Maybe something like that is not bad. And I'm also gonna disable the HDRI map because I don't want to see it in the viewport. You know, it's just I don't know, I just don't want to see it. Let me just go to the render here, film tab, and I'm just gonna make it transparent for now. Okay, great. Another thing we can do is just create a simple plane behind our ice cream. I'm gonna rotate it on X by 90 degrees and on Z by 90 degrees. Then move it back and just make it bigger. And I'm gonna move it actually much further and make it much bigger, kind of like that. And I'm gonna immediately create a new material to the background. Just gonna make it black and increase the roughness to the maximum and decrease the specularity to the minimum, because I kind of want it to be pitch black. But you can, you can select any color you want. It can be a blue, yellow, orange, whatever you want. I just want it to be completely in pure black. Okay, good. So now we can create a material for our base. So I'm just gonna create new material, and I'm gonna call it body 01. So here, we can select the color that we want for the ice cream, right? So let's say I want it to be kind of like maybe bluish, something like that. And another thing that I want to do is decrease the roughness here, because I think this is way too high roughness, because ice cream is supposed to be kind of like glowy a little bit, as you can see here. Yeah. And also do the same here for the stick. Just create a new material, call this one stick, and I'm just gonna put some bright yellow, somewhere like in between the beige color, somewhere like somewhat brownish a little bit. Yeah. Also the ice, and this is something that I wanted to do in ZBrush, but I forgot to. So first thing I want to check actually. Okay, so as you can see now here for the ice, we have a pivot point somewhere here in the middle, but it's supposed to be in a different location. So let's select the eye, then go to Object Set Origin, Origin to Center of Mass, because I want the pivot point to be in the center. So I'm gonna do the same for the other eye. There we have it. And another thing I want to do is just select both of those eyes and just make them a little bit bigger, and maybe scale. Oh no, it's fine. Yeah, make them a little bit bigger, and now I just want to bring them a little bit closer together, and I'm gonna bring them by moving the axis on y-axis, kind of like that. Maybe this one a little bit further apart. Yeah, cool. And also maybe I'll make now the tongue a little bit bigger, because I feel like now, since I made the eyes bigger, I think the tongue should be also a little bit bigger. So I'm just gonna scale it. Well, first I'm gonna set the origin to the center of mass, and I'm just gonna scale it on the y-axis a little bit like that. Yeah. Great. So let's go back to the view from the camera by pressing 0. I'm gonna switch to the rendered mode, and let's add materials now for the eye. Just make it black, make this one also black, maybe decrease the roughness to 0.5, and do the same here for this one, 0.5. Since this is already great material, as you can see, the metallic was to 1, it's not supposed to be like that, so I'm gonna disable the metallic here. And alright, so that's not bad. Let's also create the tongue, some color for the tongue. I'm gonna switch the metallic to 0. And here maybe something like red or pinkish, you know, it's really up to you what color you want, maybe even green. So maybe green would look interesting here. And also the roughness to very low value so that it would be kind of like shiny. And another material that I want to add here is to this goo, and the goo can be like, you know, any color you want. I'm gonna also turn the metallic down, and it could be red, orange, and this is maybe the time where you experiment. You know, you can also just copy it how it is on the reference, but I feel like it would be more interesting to experiment with the colors here and try out a different palette. Okay, so let's say I choose maybe like this kind of like yellowish color here. Next thing I want to do, also position now the ice cream, since we already did everything we needed to do with our material. Let me just select this plane axis here at the bottom of the floor, and now I can start rotating my ice cream and making it 3/4 how I wanted it to be, so that it would look interesting. And maybe kind of back a little bit, rotate on Z-axis a little bit like that. Okay, I like how this looks like. So now I'm gonna add a light here, area light, and move it back a little bit, rotate it on the X-axis like that, and move it up a little bit as well. And I want this light, you know, there is different ways how to set up lights, and you know, this could be a whole course about the lights, but there is the most basic setup is a 3-light setup. So it's a key light, it's a fill light, and there's a background light. In this case, we are gonna be using key light, fill light, and I'm thinking also top light overheads, so that there will be some interesting light on the top part of the ice cream. Okay, so let me position this one kind of like behind the ice cream here. I wanted to have like some rim light here from the side. As you can see, once I start increasing the value here, we get like this interesting rim here. And maybe I'll increase it to 5,000 so that it will be very, very visible. I'm just gonna put to 5,000 and look it from the camera. Okay, so as you can see, if I move it like that, there's less of it. If I move it like that, there is more of it. So in this case, it looks like kind of interesting when there is more of it. Okay, so as you can see, it already looks a bit more interesting with this, just like a one light added in HDR map. But I also can just select this one and, you know, duplicate it, position it on Y-axis, move it to front, and rotate it on Z-axis, and to look at the ice cream. And here, obviously, not that high of a value, but much lower value, something like that, because I just want it to be a fill light, because I don't want it to drop too much to the shadow, and I just want it to be a little bit brighter here at least. And also what I'm thinking, actually, before I do that, I want to also add a side light here. I feel like it would be interesting to see it here. Alright, now it creates actually these ugly shadows here. I don't like them. Okay, let me just move it in front of it, rotate like that, and decrease it just to kind of add a little bit fill light. So another thing you might notice also on the ice cream is that, as you can see, there is a lot of like this very shiny parts, right? And this is like fine, and you know, if you wish to already kind of like for it to be a final result, you can make it a final result. But I just think personally there is more interesting stuff to add. For example, what I would do is, let's say I want to add some subsurface scattering, and just to quick explanation, it essentially allows the light to go through the material. So I'm gonna increase the subsurface scattering here a little bit. If I increase it to the maximum, just to demonstrate to you, and as you can see, when I also make the radius value higher, as you can see, it shows like where the light goes through the model. And it's good for like making it look a bit more interesting. I usually add the very tiny values of the subsurface, but it makes the model, I don't know, looks kind of more cute or more interesting. I want to add another light, and I forgot to do that, and maybe it would be easier to see it here, right on top of the model. I'm gonna rotate it down, kind of like that. And you know, you don't have to rotate it like I do by pressing R, X, Y, or Z. You can also just, you know, move this around, but it's a little bit hard to understand where exactly it's rotating, because, you know, we're still looking at a 2D screen. So yeah, that's why I just rotated around the axis. So I'm gonna move it right above the ice cream somewhere here, and let me see if it's, yeah, it's good. I'm gonna turn on back the render mode, and here maybe put in 500 or something like that. Great. I'm thinking maybe it could be, yeah, kind of maybe from the front, actually, maybe a little bit more from the front, and now kind of like more looking at the ice cream, kind of like that. Yeah, and let me position it down a little bit and decrease it to 200 or something like that. Yeah. So just like some light here at the top, I think it would be interesting. Or also I can try to position maybe another light right behind the ice cream to kind of like looking at the camera. And I think it will also create an interesting rim light on the back of the head. Let me put it 5000 or something like that. It creates some interesting, and you can mess around with it definitely. Let me just hide everything else. And I'm gonna also work with this goo color material. I want to make the roughness obviously much lower because it's not supposed to be this high. And also what I like to do is sometimes add some transmission. And as you can see, it makes like the material much more gooey and more interesting. And you know, it's up to you how much transmission you want to add to it. But it will make it look a bit more interesting. Another thing you can also add here is sheen, and sheen is kind of like helps to diffuse the roughness a little bit, and usually they add it to clothes and stuff like that, but sometimes I add it to my models just to diffuse the roughness a little bit, and it makes it look more interesting. Okay, so another thing that I'm thinking right now, maybe this is not the perfect position for the ice cream. Perhaps we need to kind of like think about what would be the best position for it, because as you can see, I mean, it was a good position, but maybe rotation was not the perfect one. Okay, maybe I'll rotate it a little bit like that. Oops. Okay, so yeah, it's up to you to figure out how you want the rotation to be. Another thing I want to do is here increase the roughness a little bit, maybe 0.6. The same one here, 0.6. And add also subsurface to the tongue. So when I make it to the maximum, we can preview what the subsurface will look like. And I'm going to increase the radius here. You know, there's more custom ways, obviously, to make the subsurface look more interesting with the mix shader, but I feel like I just want to add a super tiny bit just to give some more of an interesting effect. Okay, cool. And yeah, I think this is already like close to the final render. Maybe what I can do is here on the stick, and this is like a bit experimental, you know, you don't have to do this. But again, what I can try to do here and try to use some procedural textures. So let me switch back to the object. This is our material for the stick. So I can add a displacement node here, and that is somewhere here. Oops, not like that, but to the displacement. And I can add a noise texture here, like that. And press Ctrl T for the noise texture, then switch to the UV here, and color to the height. There we go. And now when I start previewing it, as you can see, there is our noise texture applied as a displacement material to the stick. But before we do that, I want to preview straight away the noise first before we displace it. As you can see, we have this 3D noise and it's colored, and I don't think colored is good for displacement. Displacement takes usually the black and white colors. So let's convert this to black and white. We're gonna take color ramp and plug it into displacement here. Well, not displacement, but okay, let me, oops, this is a Houdini thing. I forgot that you can do that in Blender. Okay, so I'm just gonna plug it here, and I'm gonna squish those two colors together so that will be a little bit higher contrast. Kind of like that maybe. Yep. And also I'm gonna change maybe the scale a little bit here and add some distortion. And as you can see, distortion kind of adds this wood-like pattern, which I think I found very interesting, something like that. And now we can plug this one into the height of the displacement, and displacement into the displacement, and material back into the surface. So as you can see, this is our displacement on a stick, and this is way too strong. I don't think it should be this strong. I'm going to put mid level to 0 and scale to maybe 0.01. I think it just should be just a super tiny bit of it, just to kind of add some interesting texture, just a super tiny bit. And let me hide everything else. I think, yeah, it's a bit hard to see. Maybe I should increase some more of the displacement here, maybe 0.04. Let me see how it looks like here. Okay, this is too much, I think. Maybe I'm gonna make it a bit smoother here so that it wouldn't be too much, and maybe I'll increase the scale so that there will be kind of like just one big pattern like that. Okay, so it just adds a little bit more interesting texture. Another thing we can do is also something similar on the tongue. Let me actually check something before we do that. I want to just check the noise texture on this one. There is different dimensions, hybrid. What kind of noise textures? Okay, cool. All right, so another thing we can do is also this tongue. I feel like it's way too smooth. Maybe I could try to add some roughness variation here. Perhaps we can try to do that. Let me add another noise texture here. I'll make it 2D noise for now. And add color ramp. Oh, color ramp. Yeah, there we go. Plug this into factorial here, like that. And I want to also create texture coordinate by the UVs and plug this one into the roughness channel. So before we do that, let's just preview the noise actually straight away to the surface. And as you can see, there is no UV maps, right? So let's quickly do automatic UV unwrap. And did it do a good job or horrible job? Okay, just in case, I'm gonna do a smart UV project, and this is a quick way to get the UV unwrap. Just press OK. Let me check how. Okay, it's not great, and I think we might get better one by cutting it by ourselves, but let's just see how it looks like. Maybe it wouldn't even be noticeable at all. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna just make the scale bigger actually, so that there will be more differences here, and push the colors closer together so that there will be higher contrast. And all right, so now I can unplug this one, plug it into roughness, and plug this one into the surface. So as you can see, it added kind of like this differences in roughness. So we can make it less visible so that there will be smaller differences in roughness, and also increase the scale maybe more so that there will be smaller kind of like dots. But yeah, that's basically it. And it's kind of like adds this interesting texture to the model. And so now I think another thing we can also do the same thing with the roughness for the base of the model. I mean, you don't have to, as I said, it's more like a stylized thing. I was trying to copy the materials from the other element, but I don't think it wants to copy them. Okay, wait, maybe I can try to do them one more time. Okay, whatever. So let's create it again. So noise texture, color ramp, and Control T, and this is UV here, and this is to the factorial here. I'm gonna move it back and plug it into the roughness here. So I'm gonna bring the colors closer together so that it will be easier for us to see, and also maybe increase the scale. And as you can see, we can already see the differences in roughness on the model. So we can make it maybe super tiny, and perhaps it will give us like somewhat interesting look. And maybe let's see what kind of noise actually it produces. I'm just going to plug it into surface. Perhaps there is a 1D noise. No, 1D noise. 2D noise. Yeah, maybe it would be better. Just going to plug this and plug this back in. Okay, so yeah, this is, I think this is already looks great. The only thing that's left is to render it out, and we can render it out by simply going back to the layout here, checking if everything is correct. Everything is correct. All the render settings are correct. For the final render, you know, it doesn't have to be that such a high value. It could be much lower. I can just set it up to 600. 600 samples should be all right. I mean, if you want higher samples and higher quality, you can put it like to 900, but I think it's going to be overkill. And for the denoise, I'm just going to use open image denoise and use GPU, so that will be a little bit faster. And then in the output, I'm going to set up where exactly I wanted output. Just going to select desktop, press accept, and select the PNG format. Color depth, I just picked the highest color depth. And color management, follow scene. Okay, cool. So now we can press render and render image. And there it is. Our image is being rendered now. So once the render finished, you can press image here and save it wherever you need it and set the name. Let's say ice cream. Render final. Press save as image. So there we go. And you know, guys, like literally I want you all to just experiment, try things out, see what kind of renders you can get. And yeah, this is it. Like, you know, we went through it all. We sculptured the model in ZBrush. We zero meshed it. We learned a bunch of new tools. We learned how to texture procedurally and how to set up like simple light setups in Blender. And voila, our final work is done. So thanks everybody for watching. If you want to have more tutorials like that, let me know. Let me know actually if you have any questions in the comments, because I can always answer and help you out if you're stuck somewhere. And in the future, I'm gonna post more project tutorials like that. And yeah, we're gonna do much more complicated stuff, and maybe I'll explain more theory here and there. But yeah, that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye bye.